You might remember the idea of the scientist-practitioner model. In this context, it's the idea that policies and practices in organizations are based on scientific research and methods. Reliability and validity are two research-related concepts that are especially important when we're trying to understand a number of work-related topics. So I want to make sure you know what those two terms mean in this context and how they add to our understanding. Before I explain reliability and validity, I thought it'd be helpful to take a little detour to explain the idea of an operational definition. Basically, operational definition is a fancy way of saying, what are you really talking about? In research, the operational definition is the way something's measured or how the research manipulates a variable. Another way to think about it is that the operational definitions are more specific explanations of something that can also be more general. For example, I might say I want candy and then devour a package of Skittles. Skittles would be my operational definition of candy. The pictures in this slide all represent the general idea of performance, but the operational definition of what it means to perform well would be different for each occupation. An operational definition of good performance for a shoemaker might be based on a customer's report of fit or the time spent on each shoe, while the operational definition for a doctor might be average patient recovery time or time spent with each patient. You might think about how you could define performance for the occupations represented in the other pictures in this slide. Reliability means that an operational definition is consistent. For example, if 3 people all saw the same performance and were asked the same question to determine how good they thought it was, something about the question wouldn't be very reliable if each person gave a different answer. It's important to note, though, that I'm talking about the same performance. If each person saw a different performance and gave a different answer, it doesn't necessarily mean the question isn't reliable because the performance might have been different each time. The definition of validity in the text might seem a little complicated. When it comes down to it, though, when we're questioning validity, we're really just asking, is that really what we're talking about? In other words, does the operational definition really represent what we have in mind? When I was explaining operational definitions of candy, I used the example of Skittles. But what if I was really thinking about something that was caramel or chocolate flavored? Skittles would not be a valid representation of my idea of candy. Sometimes validity is even more clear-cut, too. For example, if I was thinking about candy and somebody handed me an apple or a bag of pretzels, it'd be pretty clear that was not candy. The candy example might make it seem a bit trivial, but the idea of validity can be really meaningful. You can probably remember a conversation with someone where you both thought you're talking about the same thing and it got confusing. Or maybe both of you or one of you got angry before you realized you weren't talking about the same thing. In research, a lack of validity can mean the conclusions aren't accurate. It also has a number of implications in work settings. I imagine you can think about a few ways validity can be applied to understand policies and procedures at work. The book talks about a few specific types of validity that relate to various uses of information. 2 that are especially important to note are criterion-related and content-related. Criterion-related validity is concerned with the relationship between a score and a behavior. In industrial organizational psychology, the most common behavior of interest are those related to performance. One reason, then, that criterion-related validity is important is because it helps with finding ways to figure out how to figure out if someone can do a job and do it well. Content-related validity is concerned with whether an operational definition represents all of the parts of the idea or all of the related behaviors. For example, if we claim to measure the performance of a doctor and did only include the recovery time of patients, like I mentioned earlier, that probably would be lacking in content validity because their work also includes accuracy in diagnosis and multiple other things. In the most basic terms, reliability asks if the definition of a particular idea or behavior yields consistent results under the same circumstances. And validity asks if it's really defining what we say it is. At a minimum, thinking about reliability and validity helps avoid confusion. The impact of low reliability and validity can be much greater, though. Right now, you can think of these ideas as ways to evaluate the perspectives on performance. And future modules will also learn about how they relate to other topics and processes, including the related legal considerations.